Have you ever felt that your cat didn't just find you, but was sent to you? That the way it stares, the way it appears out of nowhere just when you need it most, isn't a coincidence? What if I told you there was a man over 100 years ago who predicted this connection? A man called the Sleeping Prophet, Edgar Cayce. He entered deep trances and spoke of things that science is only now beginning to understand. He believed cats were never merely pets, but divine companions placed in our lives for reasons far beyond simple affection. And once you hear what he had to say, you may never look at your cat the same way again. Before we dive deeper, if this message already speaks to something you've always felt but never said out loud, you're in the right place. Consider subscribing to this channel, not just for content, but for connection. And if you've ever had a moment, even just one, where you felt your cat knew something you didn't, leave a comment below. I'd love to hear your story. You're not alone in feeling that there's more to this connection than meets the eye. Now, let's meet the man who first saw cats not as pets, but as soul companions long before the world was ready to listen. Long before animal spirituality became a buzzword or pets were seen as emotional support companions. There was a man quietly speaking to a deeper truth. His name was Edgar Cayce, often called the Sleeping Prophet. Cayce was a simple photographer from Kentucky who, when lying in a deep trance, could access what he described as the universal consciousness. Between 1901 and 1945, he gave more than 14,000 documented psychic readings, most of which centered around physical healing, spiritual evolution, and karmic balance. But hidden among those transcripts, beneath the more well-known material on Atlantis, reincarnation, and health, lies a quiet thread of wisdom that is now more relevant than ever: the soul-level role of animals, particularly cats, in human life. Cayce didn't often speak directly about cats in isolation. That's what makes his views so extraordinary. Instead of separating animals from the rest of his teachings, he wove them into the very fabric of universal design. For Cayce, all life was spiritual. All living things were part of a larger energetic system, souls on different paths, playing different roles, but each one meaningful. Animals weren't lesser. They were co-travelers, messengers, energy filters, and sometimes teachers. In this grand ecosystem of energy, cats held a very special function. To understand Cayce's view on cats, you have to understand his core belief about the soul. He taught that every soul, whether human or animal, enters this physical plane with a purpose: to learn, to heal, to teach, or to balance something left incomplete. Cats, according to Cayce's wider cosmology, are beings that bridge dimensions. They exist both in the tangible and the invisible. Their presence in our lives isn't random, it's assignment. Their behaviors aren't just quirks, they're signals. And their love isn't merely affection, it's energetic alignment. Cayce spoke often of soul groups, clusters of souls that reincarnate together, helping each other evolve over lifetimes. He never excluded animals from that concept. If anything, he implied the opposite. The idea that your cat might have known your soul long before this lifetime wouldn't have surprised him at all. In fact, he might have said, "Of course, that cat is here now, because your paths have crossed before, because they had to." When we start to look at our cats not as ours, but as beings with their own missions, their own frequency, and their own timeline, the relationship shifts. It becomes sacred. Cayce's teachings were always about alignment. Body, mind, and spirit and animals were part of that balance. He believed that when the soul is aligned with divine purpose, healing flows naturally, that healing isn't always medical. Sometimes it's emotional, sometimes it's spiritual, and sometimes it curls up next to you in silence, purring softly, doing the work without a word. Modern science is just beginning to validate what Cayce intuited decades ago, that animals, especially cats, can sense emotional shifts, detect illness, and align with human biorhythms in ways we can't explain. But Cayce didn't need science to prove it. He trusted the frequency of life itself. He taught that you could know by feeling. That truth wasn't always loud, but it was always there, quietly humming underneath what we call ordinary. So the next time your cat walks into the room, sits beside you, stares at a corner, or disappears for hours, only to return and curl around your feet, remember this. It's not just a habit. It's an echo, a ripple, a small movement within a greater spiritual design that you and your cat are part of together. Before we go on, I just want to say thank you. Really, if you're still here, still listening, it means something inside you resonates with this message. That quiet recognition between your heart and the presence of your cat. It's not just in your imagination. So thank you for staying with this story. Your presence here matters. And your cat might just agree. Now, let's talk about something you might have felt your whole life, but never knew how to explain why certain animals, especially cats, seem to choose you. According to Edgar Cayce, every soul, human or animal, enters this world under a specific design. Nothing is random in the architecture of the soul. And that includes the moment a cat walks into your life and refuses to leave. Cayce believed that animals, like humans, are spiritually guided. But unlike us, they don't doubt their instincts. They don't second guess who they're drawn to. They simply follow the vibration that matches their mission. And when that vibration is you, they come. You may have heard the phrase, cats pick their people. But what if that wasn't just folklore? What if it was spiritual fact? Cayce spoke often of something he called soul recognition. It's the idea that souls can sense one another's purpose beyond species, beyond form. This means that when a cat gravitates towards you, sits near you, follows you from room to room, or even shows up out of nowhere on your doorstep, there's more at play than curiosity or survival. Your soul may have sent out a signal, and theirs answered it. Some cats arrive in our lives during times of illness, grief, or major life transitions. Others seem to appear when everything feels fine, but something deep inside us is quietly misaligned. Either way, Cayce would say that the timing is not a coincidence. The arrival of that cat is part of your spiritual choreography, a divine appointment written long before either of you met. Cayce also taught that animals can serve as karmic partners. Just as people can enter our lives to help us grow, to balance past energy, or to teach us something vital, so can cats. Sometimes they mirror a part of ourselves we've forgotten. Sometimes they challenge us to slow down, be more present, or care more deeply. Other times, they simply hold space when no one else can. Their mission is rarely loud, but always intentional. And let's not forget your cat didn't read your resume. They don't care what car you drive, how productive your week was, or how spiritually enlightened you think you are. They feel you. They read your energy, not your words. And if you've ever wondered why your cat won't leave your side when you're sad, or why they seem to avoid you when your energy is off, it's because they're not reacting to your behavior. They're responding to your vibration. In Cayce's worldview, this kind of energetic connection wasn't mystical fluff, it was spiritual physics. Everything, including your relationship with your cat, is rooted in frequencies and resonance. That's why some cats bond deeply with one person while ignoring others entirely. It's not favoritism, it's frequency matching, and it's happening on a soul level. So the next time your cat chooses to curl up beside you or simply stares at you with those deep, knowing eyes, try this. Instead of asking, "Why are you looking at me like that?" ask, "What are you trying to remind me of?" Because maybe, just maybe, that cat isn't here to be taught by you. Maybe it's the other way around. Once you start seeing your cat not just as a pet, but as a soul sent for a reason, everything they do begins to look different. Even something as simple as the way they purr suddenly feels like it's doing more than comforting you. What if that gentle vibration was actually medicine? Let's talk about something you've probably felt, maybe even instinctively trusted, but never had the science or the spiritual language to explain the sound of a cat purring. It's one of the most familiar and comforting sounds in the world, a soft, rhythmic vibration that seems to say, "Everything's okay." But Edgar Cayce believed it was more than just reassurance. He believed it was healing. Cayce often spoke about vibrational healing, the idea that all things carry a frequency, and that frequency can restore balance to the body and spirit when it's in harmony. According to modern science, a cat's purr vibrates between 20 and 50 hertz, the same frequency range used in therapeutic settings to heal bones, reduce swelling, ease pain, and stimulate tissue regeneration. These aren't theories. These are measurable medical applications that are now used in physical therapy and even post-operative recovery. But Cayce didn't need machines to tell him that. He felt it. He observed the resonance between the physical body and the energy body and believed that healing often came in subtle, almost invisible ways. He would have said that when a cat chooses to purr next to you, especially when you're unwell, emotionally heavy, or spiritually drained, it's not just affection, it's intentional. We tend to think of love in terms of action feeding, cuddling, providing care. But in the energetic world Cayce described, love is also frequency. It's coherence. So when your cat climbs into your lap and starts to purr, what they're really doing might be aligning your energy field with theirs, tuning your scattered or wounded vibration back into harmony. That's why so many people report feeling calmer, warmer, even lighter after spending time with a purring cat. It's not just emotional comfort, it's frequency work. Cayce also emphasized the importance of intuitive healing that bypasses the intellect and works directly through presence. That's exactly how cats operate. They don't analyze your needs, they feel them. And in moments when words fail or emotions are too heavy to carry, their purr becomes a kind of wordless prayer, a steady hum that says, "Let me hold this for you." Cats are especially drawn to people who are energetically unstable, not because they judge, but because they respond. Some might even say they're energetically assigned. Cayce believed animals could sense disruptions in human aura fields, and that their presence, especially when they purr near certain parts of the body, could act as a natural form of energy modulation. It's also worth noting how often cats choose to lay near areas where pain resides. Many cat guardians will tell you when their stomach hurt. The cat curled up there. When their heart was broken, the cat laid across their chest. When they had a fever, the cat hovered by their head. Over and over again. The behavior is the same, and the pattern is too consistent to dismiss. Even the warmth of a cat's body plays a role. Cayce described the healing power of touch and heat as channels for energy transmission concepts mirrored in today's practices like Reiki and therapeutic massage. Your cat without ever being trained, is already doing this. Their body emits low, steady heat. Their breath synchronizes with yours. Their heart slows yours down. That's not coincidence. That's vibrational medicine woven into fur, breath, and presence. So the next time your cat curls up beside you when you're down, don't brush it off as coincidence. Don't think, oh, they just like my blanket, or they must be cold. Think instead, they know, and they're working, because what Cayce understood, and what so many of us are just beginning to rediscover, is that healing doesn't always come with flashing lights and dramatic breakthroughs. Sometimes it comes with a soft hum, a warm body, and a vibration that reaches a part of you no one else can touch. There's something almost eerie about the way cats position themselves in a room. One moment, they're absent the next. You find them curled up in the farthest corner of your house, eyes wide open, alert, but calm. They're not watching TV. They're not looking for a toy. They're just there, still, present. And maybe, just maybe, they're doing something we've overlooked. Edgar Cayce believed that energy was everywhere. Every thought, every word, every room held a vibration, some light, some heavy, some chaotic. In that worldview, a home is not just a structure, it's an energetic ecosystem. And cats, they are its natural regulators. To Cayce, cats weren't just passive companions, they were living instruments of energetic balance. He believed animals, especially cats, were attuned to subtle vibrations in a way humans had long forgotten. Their instincts, their choices, their silences all spoke in the language of energy. And within that language, cats became guardians, protectors of the spaces we share, both seen and unseen. Have you ever noticed how your cat seems to gravitate towards certain parts of the house? Maybe they sit in the same spot on the windowsill every morning. Maybe they spend hours in a dark hallway where no one else goes. Or maybe they curl up right in the middle of the floor, seemingly for no reason. But Cayce would argue there is a reason. Cats are drawn to places where energy gathers, stagnates, or requires recalibration. They're like walking feng shui sensors, but with fur. It's also no coincidence that cats seem to appear during emotional tension, after a fight, after bad news, during illness, while humans process stress in conversation or withdrawal. Cats process it with presence. They sit in the tension not to absorb it, but to shift it. Cayce believed animals could transmute energy. Just by being there, they act as filters, drawing in low vibrations and releasing more balanced frequencies in return. One of the most misunderstood behaviors of cats is their tendency to stare at nothing. We often laugh it off, or even get a little creeped out, but in Cayce's perspective, they're not looking at nothing. They're perceiving frequencies outside our range, perhaps even sensing entities, energetic residues, or dimensional rifts that the human mind isn't built to detect. When they arch their back, hiss, or bolt from a room suddenly, it may not be paranoia, it may be spiritual intervention. Their protective role extends beyond the mystical into the emotional. Cats often draw close when their human is experiencing depression, anxiety, or spiritual disorientation. They may rest on your chest, sit beside you in silence, or simply follow you from room to room like a quiet sentinel. It's not just comfort, it's coverage. It's their way of saying, I've got your back in ways you'll never fully understand. Even behaviors we often find annoying, like knocking objects off tables, or suddenly bolting through the house, may serve energetic purposes. Cayce taught that energy builds up in environments, especially when people suppress emotions or hold on to unresolved experiences. Sometimes, cats stir the energy, intentionally creating movement to prevent stagnation. They don't just live in your home, they work in it. And when they bring you gifts, a dead mouse, a feather, a crumpled leaf, it's not simply a hunting instinct, it's symbolic, it's ritual, it's a tangible offering of protection. In some traditions, it's considered spiritual currency, the cat saying, "I am guarding this space. This is my evidence." So next time your cat rubs against your leg after a long day, or chooses to sleep in the room where you cried the night before, remember they're doing more than just being sweet. They're standing guard, they're tuning your home, they're keeping watch. And if that makes you feel safer, softer, a little more whole, let them know. If you've ever felt like your cat was protecting you from something you couldn't quite name, you're not imagining it. Leave a comment below and share where your cat loves to sit, sleep, or stare. You might be surprised how many of us are experiencing the same invisible protection. And if this message resonates, consider subscribing. There's more to uncover, and your cat might want you to keep listening. Isn't it wild to think that just by sitting beside you in silence, your cat might be doing more for your soul than 100 words ever could? The more you slow down and really notice their presence, the more you begin to realize they're not just here to be loved, they're here to teach you how. There's something ancient about the way cats just are. They don't try to impress, they don't seek approval. They move with intention, rest without guilt, and focus fully on whatever they're doing, even if that something is absolutely nothing. And maybe that's why being around them feels strangely grounding, because in a world constantly demanding we hurry, prove, perform, our cats do the opposite. They invite us to pause, to breathe, to simply be. Edgar Cayce believed this presence was no accident. In fact, he taught that animals, especially cats, model the kind of consciousness humans are meant to reclaim. A presence that is fully rooted in the now, that responds to energy rather than noise, that watches before reacting. In Cayce's view, cats are not only protectors of space, but teachers of stillness. And when we learn to join them in that stillness, something begins to shift within us. Have you ever noticed how your cat seems to slow you down without saying a word? You sit beside them on the couch and suddenly, the phone doesn't feel as urgent. The to-do list fades. Your breath deepens. Your thoughts soften. Cayce described this kind of exchange as energetic resonance. It's not about doing anything. It's about being with. And when you breathe next to a cat, especially during quiet moments, your nervous system begins to mirror theirs. Your heartbeat slows, your stress hormones lower, your energy field begins to regulate. In essence, your cat is meditating with you whether you realize it or not. This is why Cayce encouraged humans to develop mindfulness in the company of animals. He believed that intentional presence between species could create spiritual alignment not through language, but through vibration. Sitting with your cat, breathing in rhythm, and simply acknowledging their presence as sacred can be a form of non-verbal prayer, a communion of souls beyond belief systems or rituals. Just presence, just breath, just love in its quietest, most powerful form. But it doesn't stop at meditation. Cayce also taught that every act, when done with awareness, becomes spiritual. Feeding your cat is no longer a chore. It becomes a ritual of nourishment, not just for their body, but for yours. Brushing their fur becomes a ceremony of bonding, a way to align energy fields and soothe the nervous system of both beings. even scooping a litter box, yes, even that becomes an act of devotion when done with presence and gratitude. It's not about glamour, it's about intention. When you begin to see every shared moment with your cat as part of a larger spiritual rhythm, the relationship transforms. No longer is your cat just your pet. They become a living reminder to return to yourself, to slow down, to listen inward, to love without condition. They become a soft alarm clock, ringing every time you drift away from the present moment. Cayce saw the spiritual path not as something separate from everyday life, but as something braided into every choice, every moment, every breath. And in that light, our cats are not distractions from our practice. They are the practice. Their quiet presence is the bell that calls us back to our soul. Their gaze becomes a mirror, reflecting where we are, without judgment, but with a kind of fierce honesty. So next time you find yourself rushing through your day, trying to check boxes and keep up, and your cat interrupts you by sitting on your keyboard, lying across your lap, or simply staring at you with those steady, watchful eyes, take the hint. Breathe, look back, and meet them in that sacred stillness. Because maybe, just maybe, the lesson they've been offering all along is this: you don't have to do more to be worthy. You just have to be here. For decades, people dismissed Edgar Cayce's words about cats and animals in general as poetic, maybe even charming, but surely symbolic at best. A man ahead of his time, they said. Someone who spoke in riddles. Someone who meant well, but didn't really mean it. After all, who takes seriously the idea that cats are placed by divine design to anchor our souls in times of chaos? But maybe the world simply wasn't ready to hear what he was actually saying, because if you listen closely, if you strip away the language of the early 20th century and pay attention to the essence of Cayce's message, you'll find something strikingly modern. He wasn't being whimsical, he was being literal. He was describing a future that we're only beginning to step into, now one where consciousness is no longer seen as a human-only domain, where relationships between species are recognized as spiritual collaborations, and where the presence of a cat is acknowledged not as a random act of nature, but as an intentional placement within your life's design. Cayce believed in reincarnation. He believed in soul groups, that souls travel together, life after life, helping each other evolve in ways that the mind can't always grasp. And he made it clear this didn't apply to humans alone. Animals, too, are part of those soul constellations. They come back. They find us again, not through logic or memory, but through energetic signature, a pull, a sense of familiarity, an unspoken knowing. So maybe your cat didn't just find you at the shelter. Maybe you didn't just choose them at random. Maybe that quiet click you felt, that strange recognition the first time you locked eyes, was something far older than this lifetime. Something that began long before this chapter and may continue long after. Cayce didn't just describe cats as protectors or healers or spiritual antennas. He saw them as companions in evolution, souls with their own trajectory, their own lessons, their own sacred agreements. And when your paths cross, it's not an accident, it's a reunion. In his readings, Cayce often emphasized that soul bonds aren't always dramatic. Sometimes they're subtle. Sometimes they're wrapped in everyday moments, the way your cat follows you from room to room, the way they sleep on your chest when you're heartbroken, the way they stare at you like they know exactly who you are, even when you've forgotten. He would say, pay attention to those moments. They're not habits, they're echoes, fragments of a deeper bond that stretches far beyond what you remember. This is why the loss of a cat can feel so much deeper than it should. Because it's not just the death of a pet, it's the departure of a soul you've traveled with. A being who understood you in ways words never could. A presence that held space for you when no one else knew how. But Cayce would also remind us no connection built in love is ever truly lost. Souls don't vanish, they circle back. They find one another again, sometimes in forms we recognize, sometimes in forms we don't. So the next time you feel your cat watching you, as if studying your soul, don't dismiss it. And when you feel a sudden wave of comfort just by their presence, honor it. Because if your cat has chosen you, maybe it's not the first time, and maybe it won't be the last. If this message stirred something in your soul, maybe your cat guided you here. Subscribe to continue walking this path together.